Yo guys, welcome to the video. This is Josh, or Milky, and did you know, over the past 7 seasons of Path of Exile, only one mechanic has gone core? Crazy. Expedition is the only one, and that has left a lot of pressure on the other mechanics that are in the game to actually stand up and stay relevant, and some of them definitely have not. Things like Abyss, Breach, Ritual, I'm looking at you, Ritual, need a bit of love, and Breach and Abyss actually got it this league. So in this video, we're going to talk about Breach, how it was used in the past, how I believe it's going to be used in the future, and potential abuse cases of its new mechanics. Enjoy the video. So let's start by talking about what Breach is good at. Breach has been typically used as fuel for MF, Delirium. For 3.19, the mobs that it provided you were actually incredibly valuable because of the legacy quantity and rarity buffs. And then in 3.2, they actually introduced a really nice change that made it so you could open multiple breaches at once. And this was really important because Breach encouraged you to have a lot of them on your map. Sometimes you'd have up to 10 if you procced the notable on the tree, and this led to you taking forever to clear one because you could only do one at a time. And the items from the Breach themselves weren't that rewarding, and the monsters didn't drop anything anymore. It was really important after they removed all those legacy quant and rarity bonuses that the actual Breach items were good, and they weren't. And before 3.21 and maybe 3.21 onwards, it remains to be seen, the items that Breach gave you just weren't good enough to make it a good mechanic, so it had to be used as something else. And the only thing it could be really used for is Delirium. But now that might have changed, so we'll come on into the changes, and there have been a lot. The actual way that the mechanics work, it no longer wants to emphasize on you having a lot of breaches. Instead, you'll probably have a normal amount compared to other mechanics, so maybe 2 or 3, 4 if you're really pushing it with Wind Scarabs. So now they're focusing on less encounters, more rewarding, and they've done this by increasing the density. They're now faster. You can still open multiple at once. They've balanced the way that Breach Splinters are rewarded, so of course they now scale with your quant and rarity. Less come from bosses. So you actually need to invest a little bit more into your character or the map in order to drop more Breach Splinters now, which is probably where we're going to see the abuse cases of Breach, if there are any, if it's valuable enough to do so. Of course, they removed the kind of in-between Breach Stones. There is only a regular Breach Stone and a Flawless now, which means Blessings are going to be very valuable because you can immediately upgrade a Breach Stone to a Flawless Breach Stone, which means you can have a chance at farming Untold, which is the amulet, which is very good. Also, other mechanics that drop Breach Splinters have had the number of Breach Splinters they drop reduced. This is things like Blight, Legion, I assume Incubators, Delirium, all that good stuff. Now you need, if you want Breach stuff, Breach is probably going to be your best bet. And they did manage some of the nodes on the tree. The most important one to mention is that you can no longer drop Blessings within map because you can immediately get a Flawless. This means that Blessings will probably have value and subsequently Breach Stones will have some value. And they also changed the way that Scarabs work. As I mentioned in the past, you were encouraged to get a lot of breaches. Now you will only get 1, and in the case of Winged, 2. So they've really pulled back on the amount of breaches you're going to be doing, and instead they're going to give you more clasped hands and double Breach Splinters from these breach hands. So the splinters are really the emphasis. So let's talk about the abuse cases, because we're in Path of Exile. If you want to go over the true efficacy of any strategy or the potency of any mechanic, you have to look at the abuse cases, because there is going to be a group of people, no matter what, abusing things. And in this case, it's the quant and rarity. There are multiple ways to augment your quantity and rarity in Path of Exile, whether you're an MF character, whether you're in a group, or if you're doing the alter tech with something like Jungle Valley or Mausoleum, you are going to really be able to bump up how many splinters you're farming. So if it does work for group players, well, they're going to kind of govern how much Breach Stones are worth, because they'll have the most splinters out of anyone because just the nature of group play and quantity. If it's not, and it's only relevant for the map quantity, well then doing alter tech is actually quite interesting, because in the last couple of leagues, there weren't that many things that benefited from the alter tech. And if you don't know what the alter tech is, there are some maps in the game that have arena bosses. And what that means is the boss doesn't actually spawn in until you enter the arena and complete a small encounter. These are Jungle Valley, Mausoleum, that I can think off the top of my head. And what this means, the map doesn't actually recognize that there's a boss in there until you do this encounter. And the altars that spawn within the map cannot have boss-related affixes, meaning you're much more likely to see things like quantity and rarity. So what you would do is you would fully clear the map, spawn all your altars, choose all the quantity and rarity nodes, and then backtrack to do the mechanics that synergize best with quantity and rarity. And in the past, this was Harvest and Expedition. And I think that this change could potentially put Breach into that group. Maybe we have 3 now. We have 3 things that really synergize well with quantity and rarity. Now, of course, you can still drop the uniques in maps. You can drop the chosen divination card. And given the emphasis of Breach now wanting you to have some amount of MF, whether from the map or your character, you are going to see more uniques as a result. So this kind of points you in the direction you want to go. If you're farming Breach, you want to either be doing the altar tech, you want to have a bit of quant and rarity on your gear, maybe you're in a party. We see what Breach is trying to do now. So let's go over to the Atlas tree that I've got made up here. As I did mention, now it's kind of in this boat with Harvest and Expedition, which is nice because it's on the same side of the Atlas tree, which makes it perfect. You would obviously grab your blue altars. These are the best ones if you're doing the altar tech, as I've mentioned. And then we've gone in and we've grabbed all the Breach nodes. This is obviously quite speculative. You could also swap Expedition for Harvest. I'm sure later on in the league, when you've got every single passive point, there could be a way, well, there absolutely is a way of combining all three of the mechanics. So you could have Breach, Expedition, and Harvest, and you could force them all, and you could just do all the altars, and you could have some really juicy mechanics within your map. Now, this obviously depends on the Breach uniques and the blessings maintaining their value and not being pump and dumped by the group players if it does work that way. But I'm quite optimistic about Breach. I think this another mechanic being added into this mix is very interesting. And just for the regular player who just wants to do Breach within their map, you're going to have more bang for your buck doing. Remove that. Just for the normal player in the map, you're going to have much more bang for your buck doing a Breach, and they're going to be more fun to do. More monsters, they go faster. Flash Breach did get a little bit of a nerf, but that's because Breaches as a whole got a buff in terms of their speed. Really nice changes to Breach. I'm very interested to see where it's going to go. What mechanics do you think also need a rework? Honestly, I think Ritual needs a bit of a look. We'll be looking at Abyss this league. I haven't yet figured anything out with it, but I will definitely be looking at it this league. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time.